friends, my name is Brittany. Welcome back or welcome to Rescues and Reads. Whether this is your first video of mine or you are an OG viewer, I am so incredibly thankful that you are here. Today we are here to do my May Book of the Month predictions. And before we get into the video, I have to just say that the sun be doing its sun thing and it keeps going in and out like behind the clouds. But if you notice that my video gets exponentially brighter and then exponentially dimmer, that is why. Unfortunately, I have no control over the sun. It would make filming a heck of a lot easier if I did, but we are just working with what we have. So I apologize for any lighting inconsistencies today. Yes, as I mentioned, we are here to do my May Book of the Month predictions. And I'm gonna be honest, y'all, I just have no idea what Book of the Month is going to do anymore. The past 2 months have been very disappointing. And I'm not even just talking about disappointing in the fact that I didn't want any of the selections, because that's not the first time that I've had to skip a Book of the Month box because I wasn't interested in the selections. But typically in past months, I have understood their selections. I've understood why they have featured the books, even if I am not interested in them. But the past couple of months, I feel like they have been diving more and more deeply into the obscure. Maybe they are trying to be more and more unique. Maybe they are trying to emulate Aardvark a little bit more and pick more eclectic titles. I'm not entirely sure what Book of the Month is doing, but I do know that what they are doing is not working for me, and I don't think that it's working for quite a lot of people out there. And so these predictions have always just been for fun. They've never been anything serious, but these days I really just have no idea what they are doing anymore. So of course we are just going to go ahead and proceed as if I do have any idea about what they are going to do. So as per usual, we are going to be starting this video with the mystery, thriller, and horror category, and this one's pretty light, y'all. I only have 2 to speak with you about today, and they are both just repeat authors. I really don't feel like May is going to be a really big month for the mystery, thriller, horror genre in general, and there really weren't very many that stuck out to me as potentials for Book of the Month, but again, who knows? They do what they want. The very first selection that I have, of course, is Alex North's new release called The Man Made of Smoke. Alex North's releases have been featured previously on Book of the Month, and I have no reason to think that they wouldn't feature him going forward. But we all know that Book of the Month loves just dropping authors that they featured in the past, Abby Jimenez being the most prominent one recently that they have not featured after featuring a lot of her newer releases. So it's very possible that Alex North will not be featured. Again, Book of the Month does what they want. But the synopsis of this one says, Dan Garvey's life has been haunted by the crime he witnessed as a child, narrowly escaping an encounter with a notorious serial killer. He has dedicated his life since to becoming a criminal profiler, eager to seek justice for innocent victims. So when his father passes away under suspicious circumstances, Dan revisits his small island community, determined to uncover the truth about his death. Is it possible that the monster he remembers from his childhood nightmares has returned after all these years? This is one that I know that a lot of people are eagerly anticipating. I personally am not the biggest fan of Alex North. I've read one book by him and I thought that it was just fine, and then I DNF'd another one that I tried. So I don't think that this is one that I would personally add to my box. But like I said, he is a repeat author multiple times over with Book of the Month. I know a lot of people really do enjoy his stories, and so this one is absolutely a top contender for this category. And then again, another repeat author that has a new release coming out in May is Andrea Bartz with The Last Fairy Out. Her previous release, We Were Never Here, was featured on Book of the Month, and I do believe her other release was featured on Book of the Month, but I could be incorrect about that. I just know that I wasn't really interested in her past release because of like the tropes that were going to be featured in it, so I didn't pick that one up. But I do remember having a great time with We Were Never Here. That features a trope I don't love, and that's like toxic female friendships and things of that nature, but for some reason Andrea Bartz's novel actually kind of worked for me, so I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to trying something from her in the future. This says, on a trip to the tropical paradise where her fiance died, a young woman begins to suspect the death was no accident and the killer's still on the island, in this twisty thriller from the New York Times bestselling author of Reese's book club pick We Were Never Here. So it sounds like we are going to have a woman who is trying to figure out what happened to her fiance. She doesn't believe his death was an accident. She believed he was killed and the killer is still out there, and she's going to try to maybe figure out what actually happened to him. I do feel like this covers some tropes that Book of the Month loves to feature. They love to feature their thrillers that are set in tropical locations. So again, this is a repeat author set in a tropical location featuring tropes that Book of the Month loves to highlight. So this is certainly one that I would not be surprised to see featured in May on Book of the Month. Moving on into the romance category, again, I only have 2 that I want to highlight here today in this video. The first, of course, is Catherine Center's newest release called The Love Haters. Catherine Center has been featured multiple times on Book of the Month. She is a very much beloved contemporary romance author, and so this is a very top contender for May in the romance category. This says, Katie Vaughn has been burned by love in the past. Now she may be lighting her career on fire. She has 2 choices: wait to get laid off from her job as a video producer, or at her coworker Cole's request, take a career-making gig profiling Tom Hutchison, a Coast Guard rescue swimmer in Key West. The catch? Katie's not exactly qualified. She can't swim, but she pretends she can. Plus, Cole and Hutch are brothers, and they don't get along. As Katie gets entangled with Hutch, the most scientifically good-looking man she has ever seen, along with his colorful Aunt Rue and his rescue Great Dane, she gets trapped in a lie or 2. Swim lessons, helicopter flights, conga lines, drinking contests, hurricanes, and stolen kisses ensue, along with chances to tell the truth, to face old fears, and to be truly brave at last. So that just sounds like it's going to be a cute, sweet, fun time. Love the fact that there's going to be a rescued Great Dane in here. A Great Dane is like my dream dog. I would love to own a Great Dane someday, but of course I'm not going to get one unless I can actually find one at a rescue. But I would definitely love a Great Dane someday. So there are definitely aspects of this that I think are going to be a lot of fun. I have tried Catherine Center in the past and I didn't love the book that I read by her, so I'm not really inclined to pick up anything else from her in the future. And y'all know that I'm just not a big rom-com type girly, but like I said, I know that she is very, very, very beloved. She has been featured on Book of the Month multiple times, and so I definitely would expect to see this one featured in May. All right, and then the final one that I have for the romance category is a book called What If It's You by Jilly Gagnon. When Laurel Everett finds a ring in her longtime boyfriend Ollie's sock drawer, she should be thrilled. So why is she left wondering what if? Specifically, what if she'd taken up her work crush Drew on his offer of a date after she and Ollie got together? Thanks to her job at tech giant Pixel, she might have a way to answer that question through the Alt-R project, which promises users a glimpse of alternate realities. When the program actually works, and Laurel wakes up 5 years into her life with Drew, she's fascinated, then increasingly horrified as she continues to slip between that world and her real life, seemingly at random. As she moves back and forth between the two worlds, Laurel realizes choosing the right life might not be as simple as deciding between two men and the different visions of happiness they offer. And if she doesn't find a way to untangle herself from the quantum mess she's unleashed, she might wind up stuck in the wrong life, or worse, deleted entirely like a faulty line of code. So this sounds like it's going to be a really interesting and unique take on the sliding door trope, right? You have a woman who is in a life, she has a long-term boyfriend named Ollie, she thinks he's going to propose, but yet she starts to question whether this is the right path for her, and there is now technology that might allow her to see what her life had been like had she chose another path. This again features a lot of tropes that Book of the Month really likes to highlight. They have featured multiple books in the past that feature that take on the sliding doors trope, where one character is kind of like faced with a choice, right? They have to kind of choose a direction, and they're trying to figure out how their life would have played out had they chosen the other path. I actually really enjoy the sound of this. Again, I don't know if it's something that I would pick up just because I really do enjoy the more harder hitting substantial reads, and I just have a feeling that even if I had a great time with the story, it would only get like a 3.5 at the absolute most from me, and I really want to try to aim for reading books that I do think are going to be 4 stars and above. So I don't think that I would pick this one up, but I would love for it to be featured, and I would love to hear more people's thoughts about this one. All right, moving on into the contemporary / literary fiction category, and this one is big this time, y'all. This is by far the biggest category that we will be talking about today. There are a lot of really notable releases in this category that are coming out in the month of May. The first book that I'm going to mention is Home of the American Circus by Allison Larkin. Allison Larkin was featured on Book of the Month previously with The People We Keep, and I did actually get that one from Book of the Month, and I rather enjoyed it, so this could potentially be one that is on my radar. This says, after an emergency leaves her short on rent, 30-year-old Freya Arnold bails on her lackluster life as a bartender in Maine and returns to her suburban hometown of Somers, New York, to live in the house she inherited from her estranged parents. Despite attempts to lay low, Freya encounters childhood friends, familial enemies, and old flames, as well as her 15-year-old niece Aubrey, who is secretly living in the derelict home. As they reconnect, Freya and Aubrey lean on each other, working to restore the house and come to terms with the devastating events that pulled them apart years ago. Set in the birthplace of the American circus, this deeply moving novel is an exploration of broken families, the weight of the past, and the complicated journey of finding home. So again, this is going to feature complicated family dynamics. It involves the character returning home and probably like building back up her life. So again, tropes that Book of the Month really, really loves to feature within the books that they highlight, but I do have a very strong feeling that this one is definitely going to be featured. All right, and then this next one is a little bit tentative. It is the newest release from Hannah Orenstein called Main Characters. Now, Hannah Orenstein was featured on Book of the Month in the past with her contemporary called Head Over Heels. I read that book and I really didn't like it. And I don't think her release that came after that was featured on Book of the Month, which is why I say that this is tentative, but she is a repeat author, so there is a likelihood that she could be brought back on Book of the Month. Every summer, Vivian Levy and Lucy Webster spend a month with their father at his lake house, separately. Raised in New York City, Vivian is an ambitious sommelier with a secret that could derail her future. Lucy grew up in a tiny Maine town where she now teaches high school English while watching her marriage unravel. They've never met. While Lucy envied her half-sister from afar, their father kept Vivian in the dark. When Vivian arrives at the lake to spread his ashes and sell his cabin, she's shocked to find Lucy there, awaiting his return. In an ideal world, they'd help each other through their grief. Instead, forced to spend the summer together, they fight through a storm of suspicion and hostility to untangle the messy truth about their parents' pasts. While Lucy is desperate to hold on to the house, Vivian is scrambling after a betrayal. After 30 years apart, is it too late for them to be a family? This sister story set on a lush lake brims with the undeniable heart, depth, charm, and humor that have endeared Hannah Orenstein Florenstein to legions of readers. I think if I'm understanding correctly, one knew of the other and one of them didn't know of the other. So I think that could be like a very interesting dynamic for sure. Again, this is not one that I would be picking up, but it definitely does sound like it's going to be an interesting time. All right, the next one that I have for this category is a book called The Names by Florence Knapp. This is one that I've definitely seen going around, and I've heard a lot of really, really amazing things about this one. It says, in the wake of a catastrophic storm, Cora sets off with her 9-year-old daughter Maya to register her son's birth. Her husband Gordon, a local doctor, respected in the community, but a terrifying and controlling presence at home, intends for her to name the infant after him. But when the registrar asks what she'd like to call the child, Cora hesitates. Spanning 35 years, what follows are 3 alternate and alternating versions of Cora's and her young son's lives, shaped by her choice of name. In richly layered prose, The Names explores the painful ripple effect of domestic abuse, the messy ties of family, and the possibility of autonomy and healing. With exceptional sensitivity and depth, Knapp draws us into the story of one family, told through a prism of what-ifs, causing us to consider the one precious life we are given. The book's brilliantly imaginative structure, propulsive storytelling, and emotional gut-wrenching power are certain to make The Names a modern classic. So that sounds like it's going to be a really interesting exploration of the power of a name. You have a mother, she needs to register her son's name, and her abusive husband wants that son to be named after him, but she kind of knows the ramifications of that. I think it says what happens in like 3 alternating timelines of what happens when she gives him 3 different names. I am really interested in the concept of that, honestly. I don't know if this is something I would pick up without hearing more about it, but I really do think that it is an imaginative structure like the review says, and I'm really, really intrigued. And then of course we have the newest release by Fredrik Backman coming out in May called My Friends. Now Fredrik Backman is a very, very, very beloved author. I was never able to get on the hype train of Fredrik Backman. I didn't love Beartown like everybody else loved Beartown. I've tried a couple other of his stories and they just haven't really worked for me, but I know, like I said, that he is really, really well loved and he has been featured on Book of the Month in the past, and I definitely do think that they would feature him again. This says most people don't even notice them. 3 tiny figures sitting at the end of a long pier in the corner of one of the most famous paintings in the world. Most people think it's just a depiction of the sea, but Louisa, an aspiring artist herself, knows otherwise, and she's determined to find out the story of these 3 enigmatic figures. 25 years earlier, in a distant seaside town, a group of teenagers find refuge from their bruising home lives by spending long summer days on an abandoned pier, telling silly jokes, sharing secrets, and committing small acts of rebellion. Out of that summer emerges a transcendent work of art, a painting that will unexpectedly be placed into 18-year-old Louisa's care. She embarks on a surprise-filled cross-country journey to learn how the painting came to be and to decide what to do with it. The closer she gets to the painting's birthplace, the more nervous she becomes about what she'll find. Louisa is proof that happy endings don't always take the form we expect, and the stunning testament to the transformative, timeless power of friendship and art. I could be convinced to pick this one up because that sounds phenomenal. That sounds incredibly unique. You have a woman who is intrigued by 3 figures that she sees in a painting, figures that really no one else notices, but she has a hunch that there is a story behind these figures and she wants to find them and she wants to know what the history is behind the figures in the painting. And I'm actually really, really interested in that. I think that this could be the book that allows me to give Fredrik Backman another shot. I'm not entirely sure, but there's just something about that synopsis that really, really works for me. All right, next we actually have a debut called The Original Daughter by Jemima Way. This says, before Erin, Genevieve Yang was an only child, living with her parents and grandmother in a single-room flat in working-class Bedok. Genevieve is saddled with an unexpected sibling when Erin appears, the shameful legacy of a grandfather long believed to be dead. As the 2 girls grow closer, they must navigate the intensity of life in a place where the urgent insistence on achievement demands constant sacrifice. Knowing that failure is not an option, the sisters learn to depend entirely on one another as they spurn outside friendships, leisure, and any semblance of a social life in pursuit of academic perfection and passage to a better future. When a stinging betrayal violently estranges Genevieve and Erin, Genevieve must weigh the value of ambition versus familial love, home versus the outside world, and allegiance to herself versus allegiance to the people who made her who she is. In the story of a family and its contention with the roiling changes of our rapidly modernizing winner-take-all world, The Original Daughter is a major literary debut rife with emotional clarity and searing social insight. So again, we see themes that Book of the Month loves to explore here, right? We obviously have that diversity representation going on here, and we also have 2 siblings and the complicated dynamics between them. I think that that's something that we've seen pop up multiple times on Book of the Month recently, is complex sibling dynamics, if not outright complex family dynamics. So this is definitely one that I have been seeing going around. I do think that this one would be top on Book of the Month radar for the literary fiction category, and I would not be surprised to see that there for sure. All right, and then the very final book that I have for this category is the newest release from Kevin Wilson called Run for the Hills. Kevin Wilson, again, is another repeat author from Book of the Month. Sorry for any angle change, friends. I didn't realize that my memory card was so close to being full, so I had to stop and change it. But I do believe that I was going to go into more detail about Run for the Hills by Kevin Wilson. So this says, ever since her dad left them 20 years ago, it's been just Madeline Hill and her mom on their farm in Coalfield, Tennessee. Well, it's a bit lonely, she sometimes admits, and a less exciting life than what she imagined for herself. It's mostly okay. Then one day, Reuben Hill pulls up in a PT Cruiser and informs Madeline that he believes she's his half-sister. Ruben, left behind by their dad 30 years ago, has hired a detective to track down their father and a string of other half-siblings, and he wants Mad to leave her home and join him for the craziest kind of road trip imaginable to find them all. As Mad and Rube, and eventually the others, share stories of their father, who behaved so differently in each life he created, they begin to question what he was looking for with every new incarnation. Who are they to one another? What kind of man will they find? And how will these new relationships change Mad's previously solitary life on the farm? So that sounds really interesting. Again, we have another situation where we have unexpected siblings, right? We have somebody who was abandoned many years ago. He's going out to search for his father. You have another person who had no idea she had other siblings out there, and maybe they're going to go on a quest to find each other, and maybe they're going to grow a family. Similar themes running throughout a lot of the Book of the Month books, right? I would definitely not be surprised to see this one there. All right, and then moving on into historical fiction, I have two books to talk to you about today. The very first one is a book called My Name is Emilia Dval by Isabel Allende. It says, in San Francisco in 1866, an Irish nun, abandoned following a torrid relationship with a Chilean aristocrat, gives birth to a daughter named Emilia Dval. Raised by a loving stepfather, Emilia grows into an independent thinker and a self-sufficient woman. To pursue her passion for writing, she is willing to defy societal norms. At the age of 17, she begins to publish pulp fiction using a man's pen name. When these fictional worlds can no longer satisfy her sense of adventure, she turns to journalism, convincing an editor at the Daily Examiner to hire her. There she is paired with another talented reporter, Eric Whalen. As she proves herself, her restlessness returns until an opportunity arises to cover a brewing civil war in Chile. She seizes it, as does Eric, and while there, she meets her estranged father and delves into the violent confrontation in the country where her roots lie. As she and Eric discover love, the war escalates and Emilia finds herself in extreme danger, fearing for her life and questioning her identity and her destiny. So this sounds like it's going to be about like a young writer who journeys to South America, not only for her job, not only to cover the civil war that's brewing, but also to reconnect with her estranged father and to find out more about her history. So it does sound like there's going to be some complicated family dynamics here. It sounds like there are going to be some secrets revealed that are going on here. And again, something that would be very, very much up Book of the Month alley. But I do think that this one is a little bit unique in terms of the representation. I don't think that we really see very many historical fictions featured on Book of the Month or anywhere in general that are set in South America or Chile. So I do think that we are going to get that very unique representation within this story. And then the last book that I have in this category is yet another debut. It is a book called The Devil Three Times by Ricky Fain. It says, Yetunde awakens aboard a slave ship en route to the United States with the spirit of her dead sister as her only companion. Desperate to survive the hell that awaits her at their destination, Yetunde finds help in an unexpected form, the devil himself. The devil, seeking a way to re-enter the pearly gates of heaven, decides to prove himself to an indifferent god by protecting Yetunde and granting her a piece of his supernatural power. In return, Yetunde makes an incredible sacrifice. Their bargain extends far beyond Yetunde's mortal lifespan. Over the next 175 years, the devil visits Yetunde's descendants in their darkest hours of need. Lucille, a conjure woman, Asa, who passes for white, Lewis and Virgil, who risk becoming a 20th century Cain and Abel, Cassandra, who speaks to the dead, James, who struggles to make sense of the past while fighting to keep his family together, and many others. The devil offers each of them his own version of salvation, all the while wondering, can he save himself too? Steeped in the spiritual traditions and oral history of the Black diaspora, The Devil Three Times is a baptism by fire and water, heralding a new voice in American fiction. So as you can definitely tell by listening to the synopsis of this is not pure historical fiction. There are definitely speculative elements to it, but this one definitely sounds really, really intriguing, and I'm interested to learn more about it. All right, and then we finally reached the last category of fantasy, sci-fi, and magical realism. I actually have 4 to talk with you about today in this category, starting with A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the follow-up to A Fate Inked in Blood, which was previously featured on Book of the Month. Now, I know Book of the Month doesn't always continue their series, so it is entirely possible that this one is not featured on Book of the Month, but if you did get A Fate Inked in Blood from Book of the Month, definitely be on the lookout for this one, because I do think there's a strong possibility that it will be added as an add-on selection for May. All right, the next prediction that I have is a book called Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. It says, Konstantin Duhovny is a haunted man. His father died when he was 10, and ghosts have been hovering around him ever since. Kostya can't exactly see the ghosts, but he can taste their favorite foods. Flavors of meals he's never eaten will flood his mouth, a sign that a spirit is present. Kostya has kept these aftertastes a secret for most of his life, but one night he decides to act on what he's tasting, and everything changes. Kostya discovers that he can reunite people with their deceased loved ones, at least for the length of time it takes them to eat a dish that he's prepared. He thinks his life's purpose might be to offer closure to grieving strangers, and sets out to learn all he can by entering a particularly fiery ring of hell, the New York culinary scene. But as his kitchen skills catch up with his ambitions, Kostya is too blind to see the catastrophe looming in the afterlife, and the one person who knows Kostya must be stopped also happens to be falling in love with him. Set in the bustling world of New York restaurants and teeming with mouth-watering food writing, Aftertaste is a whirlwind romance, a heart-wrenching look at love and loss, and a ghost story about all the ways we hunger and how far we'd go to find satisfaction. So I don't know about you, but that sounds incredibly unique and fascinating. The first time I heard about this book was when I was doing research, trying to figure out predictions for May. I haven't seen it going around at all, but I have a feeling that this one is going to get really, really popular. And I am certainly interested to hear more about this. This is one that is tentatively on my radar to pick up should I see it on Book of the Month, but this may also be one that I want to hear more about before I pick up. But I am certainly intrigued by this one. All right, and this next one is actually supposed to be a sapphic dark academia, which is what put it on my radar and what makes me really hope that Book of the Month does feature it. It is a book called The Incandescent by Emilie. Dr. Walden is the director of magic at Chetwood School and one of the most powerful magicians in England. Her days consists of meetings, teaching A-level invocation to 4 talented, chaotic sixth formers, more meetings, and securing the school's boundaries from demonic incursions. Walden is good at her job. No, Walden is great at her job, but demons are masters of manipulation. It's her responsibility to keep her school with its 600 students and centuries-old legacies safe. And it's possible the entity Walden most needs to keep her school safe from is herself. So that is very vague. It doesn't entirely give me much, but I am all for a good dark academia, so I would love to see this one featured. All right, and then the very final one that I have for this category is a book called The Memory Collectors by Deet Meserve or Deti Meserve. I'm so sorry, I'm probably butchering this person's name. But this says, what would you do if you could spend an hour in your past? 4 strangers in the beach town of Ventura, California are about to find out. Elizabeth aches for one more precious hour with her son who died in a senseless accident. Andy is desperate to find his first love who vanished after a whirlwind romance. Logan craves the rush of surfing and mountain climbing, yearning to reclaim the freedom he lost after a misstep landed him in a wheelchair. Brooke is looking for an hour of relief from the guilt of an unforgivable mistake. Enter Eon Expeditions, the groundbreaking time travel invention of Mark Saunders, which allows some lucky clients the chance to spend an hour in their past. Even though Eon's technology ensures time travel can't alter the future, all 4 clients, including Mark's ex-wife Elizabeth, yearn to revisit the hour that changed their lives forever. But when their hour extends beyond 60 minutes, they find themselves stranded in the past. As their paths intertwine unexpectedly, they unearth shocking secrets hidden in the shadows of their shared history. All their lives were shattered the same night on a secluded highway by the beach. As they delve into the hidden truths of that pivotal hour, a startling revelation emerges. They were not alone. Someone else was present, harboring deadly intentions. This is another one that I really, really love the synopsis of. I always love the concept of people exploring what it would mean if they went back in time and they were to erase the hour that changed their lives. And it sounds like all 4 of these people, their lives were changed on the exact same day. And I'm really interested to see what that was and what happened. You know what I mean? So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. This is, again, another one that I really want to hear more about. It is certainly one that is now on my radar. I don't know if Book of the Month would feature it, but I definitely am intrigued by this one. All right, everybody, that is it. Those are the books that I tentatively think could be featured on Book of the Month, either as add-on selections or as main selections. As per usual, if there are any books that you think could be featured or you hope will be featured, please feel free to leave that information down below. Or if you've made it to the end of this video and you are not feeling chatty, go ahead and leave me a little clock emoji, because it sounds like we have several books that are going to be released that are going to play with time in some way. And as always, if you like this video or if you just like me, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I typically post 2 videos a week, one on Wednesdays, one on Sundays, and I would love to connect with you in any of those future videos. Or if you'd prefer to connect with me outside of BookTube, you can always find links to my Goodreads, Instagram, and Patreon linked down below, along with any books featured in the video. Until next time, y'all.